Welcome to this week's box office rundown, and dropping like a stone down to number 10 from last week's number 4 is Christian Slater in Cuffs.
Howdy. I never really saw myself as a cop. I'm more like the bad guys.
Why are we doing so much running? Aren't we all gonna be in cars?
I'm looking for a really big gun that holds a lot of bullets.
The charismatic Slater deserves better than this duff Beverly Hills Cop ripoff, as he plays a slimy womanizer who is suddenly thrown in the spotlight when his brother is randomly killed off and he must take over his role as a civilian cop in the local neighbourhood. To this point, the film has made around 11 million, and that's a budget of between 10 and 12 million, but sadly it's nowhere near as cool or hip as it thinks it is. Still going strong at number 9 is the Disney classic Beauty and the Beast, 10 weeks on the chart now, and it has got 95 plus million at the domestic box office alone, close to 96 million, so still a runaway hit, and it would also do well at that year's Oscar ceremony. Still holding strong on its 5th week on the chart is Oliver Stone's Oscar contender JFK, with 46 million now at the domestic box office.
It became an obsession with truth.
You're the DA in New Orleans. Don't you think the Kennedy assassination's a little bit out of your domain?
A commitment to justice.
Nobody's gonna tell me that kid did the shooting job he did from that damn bookstore.
A sacrifice of everything he had.
I think you care more about John Kennedy than your own family.
4th week on the chart for this much-loved indie film Grand Canyon, as Kevin Kline's immigration lawyer is mugged on his way back from a basketball game, but is saved by Danny Glover's truck driver Simon. The two bond in this a somber drama about community, racial division, and also class. It jumped back into the top 10 last week and has just over 12 million at the domestic box office. Pretty good going. It was released on Christmas Day 1991 and described as the big chill of the 90s. It also stars a young Jeremy Sisto, Brenda's brother in 6 Feet.
You are so that I just want to reach over and then I also want to do nothing. Because I want to make sure I know you for as long as I possibly can without fucking it up. Which is like my special superpower. That's why I don't want to touch you. And that's pretty much verbatim, moment for moment, what I was thinking when I was looking at you with the weirdness.
Columbia Pictures presents Barbra Streisand.
What's your first name?
My patients call me Dr. Lowenstein.
But I'm not your patient.
Nick Nolte.
Oh, I was a courteous Southern boy.
Four weeks and 48 million for The Prince of Tides, and that's enough. Let's move on to something more exciting. Steve Martin still has plenty of staying power as the father of the bride in this smash hit comedy. 5 weeks now on the chart and over 60 million at the box office. Wait a minute, is that little douche out of Succession?
What up, pricklicks? It's me, Dr. Moron. I'm a ding-dong doodle-bug dipshit. My dad hates all of you. How was that? Was that good?
Dropping just one place to this week's number 4 is Steven Spielberg's Hook, starring Dustin Hoffman as the title character and the late Robin Williams. 7 weeks on the chart now, 99,661,516 in overall, and 7 million this week at the box office alone. And as we move into the top 3, 2 new entries gate crashed the party, starting with this.
Alex Furlong is about to die.
In at number 3 is the nutty B-movie sci-fi action thriller Freejack, where in the future of 2009, the super wealthy hire bone jackers to go to the past and snatch people at the moment of their death so that they can achieve immortality. Racing car driver played by Emilia Estefan is about to suffer that very fate in 1991, but is then snatched out of the cockpit by a time machine and taken to the dystopian future where he is now a Freejack on the run from slimy bounty hunter played by rock star Mick Jagger. Alex tries to reconnect with ex-girlfriend Julie, played by the marvellous Rene Russo, a virtually unknown at this point, but would go on to star in such films as the Lethal Weapon franchise and the Thomas Crown Affair remake. Russo is excellent in this and in pretty much everything else, but with this being 20 years on, Julie is now a successful businesswoman and doesn't believe that the man before her is really her ex-boyfriend. Freejack is often seen as one of the big turkeys of the 1990s, maybe one of the big turkeys ever, and I can't disagree too much. It holds an approval score of just 22% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Entertainment Weekly's Owen Glindemann described it as a routine urban chase thriller with sci-fi gimmicks and a cheap mismatch of Blade Runner RoboCop and Total Recall. The film's own star, Anthony Hopkins, even called it terrible on the David Letterman show. Not that I can disagree too much, but at times the film did actually appeal to my so bad it's good sensibility. The action sometimes is so over the top and frantic and chaotic, then it was actually quite enjoyable, and Rene Russo did add a bit of heart and charisma to the proceedings. Mick Jagger is an entertaining bad guy in a, well, so cheesy this is entertaining sort of way. Emilia Estefan was miscast though in the role. It's a bit of a dud, but at times I did have fun with it, and to a guy like me, it's a cult oddity which I'm going to enjoy rewatching in the future and of course laughing at. It got 7,814,921 in its first week, and that was across 1,551 cinemas in America. But as we head to Critics' Corner, let's see what Siskel and Ebert thought of the film.
Why me? Why don't they just grab somebody who's alive now?
Take a look at these people, Alex. They've lived half their lives with no ozone layer.
Tell me who's behind all this.
I'm sorry. But I can't tell you that.
First movie is named Freejack, an ambitious but misguided science fiction film.
Looking for Julie. Julie Redland. Damn it, now where is she?
You get out of my face.
Charles, wait. Julie Redland? Child, we bought this place from her years ago.
No, that's impossible. I was with her here this morning.
Oh, God. He's a Freejack.
Let me tell you something. I said I'd deliver Furlong, and that's what I'll do. Feel free to make any arrangements you like, but keep your people out of my way.
Estevez searches through the future for his girlfriend from the past, played by Rene Russo. When he finds her, she's held up pretty good after 18 years. Only her hair has changed, and now she's a powerful executive in the company that runs the world.
Will you stop for 1 second and listen to me? Alex, I can prove it!
Freejack credit for having ambition and for containing ideas which are a little more challenging and complicated than at first you might suspect. The screenplay is based on the science fiction classic Immortality Incorporated by Robert Sheckley. Unfortunately, the ideas take second place to a lot of high-tech action stuff, explosions, fights, special effects, and those parts of the movie look like every other futuristic action picture.
Absolutely.
I found part of it interesting in terms of its premise, but none of it interesting in terms of entertainment.
No, I mean, in the writing, it is like every other science fiction, futuristic piece, Roger, and I really am tired of this group because they all do the same thing. They take all the problems of the present, just exaggerate them a little bit, and give us this alienating society. Why doesn't somebody go for a futuristic exercise where the world is better? Why don't they make that leap? It seems so obvious to have a world that's so much better and then indict the present. They want to indict the present by making us see more present.
There's another problem, which is if you were a race car driver who had wiped out when your car hit a bridge and you went up in flames, and then you find yourself in the year 2009, what is the first thing you would do?
What happened?
Immediately, would you start looking for your girlfriend? Well, maybe you would. But, I mean, they always turn it into a very trivial little story about whether these two people will get back together again. The guy never seems to be properly astonished by the enormity of what's happened to him.
Exactly right. I was clocking it. The picture probably goes 40 to 45 minutes before he says, hey, what happened?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Ridiculous. And it isn't, 20 years is not that far enough in the future. Okay, next movie. In other words, it's not like he's gone centuries. It's,
Well, 20 years would still be amazing to me.
It would be amazing.
If I woke up in 20 years and I was still here across from you.
You got it.
It would be amazing.
The waking up is what would be interesting for you.
So it's a thumbs down from those two. No doubt Freejack is prime material for a future Patreon commentary from my good self. And now on to the number 2 this week. Making an impressive debut on the chart this week in at number 2 is Juice, a film which made a decent 9,829,000 in its first week at the box office. That was across 1,089 cinemas. Now, it's about 4 inner city teenagers who set out to gain power and happiness, which they call the juice of the title. It stars up-and-coming star Omar Peeps and also rap superstar Tupac Shakur. I'll have more on this film next week, but let's see what Cisco and Ebert thought about it.
Sir? Sir, can I check that newspaper?
You gotta get the ground beneath your feet, partner. Get the wind behind your back and go out in the blaze if you got to. Otherwise, you might as well be dead your damn self.
And a lesson for anyone who might be watching and listening that the very possession of a lethal weapon can cause tragedy for the people around it. The movie's bleak message seems to be that guns are manufactured to be fired. You know what they say? That a hammer finds a tack? And that irresponsibility about their sale and use leads to the destruction of lives. It's a strong message in a movie that's well made, but probably suffers from inevitable comparisons with Spike Lee's work. But after one film, what you can basically say is that Ernest Dickerson is a great cinematographer, but not yet a great director.
So are you recommending the picture or not?
I'm recommending the picture, yeah, marginally, yeah.
I think that you're giving too much credit for the message. I mean, the danger of handguns is well known, and it would almost be impossible to make anything less than, I don't think this is powerful, I guess is the point I'm trying to make, statement against handguns. I think there are a lot of
what I think is really good about the picture, apart from this message, and that is the way that we see the daily lives of these young men, and the way that the kid who really only wants to be a DJ gets carried along by peer pressure against his will into a situation of crime.
Except that I did not believe that these kids, 3 of them, of the quartet, 3 of them who seem like really nice guys, okay, and I'm talking about how the actors are coming across, would continue in this violent world. I did not believe.
The movie is about the dynamic that gets them into a situation that they don't want to be in.
I can understand the first shot. I cannot understand being around on subsequent shots, and that I just didn't buy it as a movie, and it could have been taken place in South Carolina in the country, and I would have found this picture to be a fault.
Well,
I think it's really easy. It's an easy subject area to do,
See, that's where I
badly.
disagree with that. I really believe that he was able to show how that dynamic worked with that group, getting itself into a position it didn't want to be in.
Holding on to the number one spot this week is Curtis Hanson's Psycho Nanny yuppie thriller The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which debuted at the top spot last week. A very impressive second week for the film, gaining 24,075,000 overall at the box office, with a really good word of mouth second week as it got 14 plus million in this week alone, and that's an increase of 40.2% for the film. Now, as you might recall if you listened last week, I have mixed feelings on the film. I think the standouts are Rebecca De Mornay and Julianne Moore's performances, but it's a mixed bag overall for me. But let's see what Cisco and Ebert thinks of this week's number one.
There are some fun thrills in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, to be sure, but I found a lot of it distasteful, too.
On this film worked, and that's usually the way I approach it. I go to a thriller expecting to be thrilled. I don't go expecting to have all of my sensibilities respected and all of my sensitivities honored, because I know that in a movie like this, I can almost anticipate exactly what it's going to be about.
Can I ask you one question? Yeah. Would the picture have been better if you had bought the premise? See, that's where we do have this argument. You'll say, but Gene, you got to grant a movie its premise. And I say, not really. Let him write a better premise, then I'll grant it.
I grant the premise. You could pick up the paper and read about killer nannies right now, going on all over the country.
Oh, Roger.
That's true.
What newspapers do you read?
They had a big case in England. I was just on vacation. They had her picture all over page one. But apart from that, in most of these thrillers, the premise is not too likely. Look at Fatal Attraction, or look at Jagged Edge. It's not that the premise is likely, it's that it touches on a fear that we all have, and that's why it appeals to us.
I said that it touched on
And I think
fear.
the one thing you didn't really give fair hearing to was Rebecca De Mornay's performance in this film, because she does, I think, a very good job, a very, very sound job of being the villainess in this film, and I think it's an effective performance that works.
I think it's an effective performance, and I said that it touches on fears. I'm just saying, what about the cheap way of using the kids? You didn't like those scenes. Come on. You like those scenes?
I found them very interesting because I saw them as a portrait of the evil of that woman.
Okay.
Some very fine points from Ebert there, and clearly the early 90s was a scary place to be in if you were in England with Psycho Nannies on the loose. Now, before I go this week, just time for a little bit of a spotlight for something that's just outside the top 10. And this week's spotlight goes to the charming coming-of-age film My Girl, which is just outside the top 10 at number 16 this week, 9 weeks on the chart, and over 53 million at the box office at this point. Really good going. So the film, in case you don't know, it's set in the 1970s. It stars Anna Jarotsky in her first role, where she plays 11-year-old Vada, whose father, played with bumbling charm by Dan Aykroyd, owns the local funeral home. Vada has a life-threatening condition which makes her obsessed with death. She befriends 11-year-old outcast Thomas J. Sennett, played by a post-Home Alone Macaulay Culkin. The new makeup lady at the funeral parlour, Shirley DeVito, is played with feisty conviction by Jamie Lee Curtis, who also befriends Chauncey's girl. DeVito becomes the mother figure, with a void left by her late mother, and later starts a relationship with Dan Aykroyd's father. My Girl in total would go on to gross 121 million worldwide. Really impressive stuff. It holds a decent 53% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is from 17 reviews. And the critics were mostly praising it at this point, saying it's got an important message and was uplifting. But also for them, for some anyway, it was a bit too syrupy. But also that they were very high on Chauncey's debut performance, and I would agree with that. Personally, it is very cheesy, but I don't mind that too much. I think it's an impressive coming-of-age movie. They really provoked that period very nicely, the 70s setting feels authentic to me with a great soundtrack, and I think the performances are very natural. Obviously, great support from Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis, who are perfectly cast in this one, and it's a great example of how to do a coming-of-age comedy very effectively, and even though they do go a bit heavy with the cheese, it works for me, with a couple of darker and more touching moments also thrown in. That's this week's Spotlight, My Gal, and I'll leave you with a clip from it. I'll see you next week.
Daddy! Daddy! Daddy!
Veda, what's the matter?
Where's Daddy?
Well, he just left. What's wrong?
I'm hemorrhaging.
What do you mean you're hemorrhaging?
I don't need your help, but Daddy,
Veda,
you gotta move.
did this happen in the bathroom? How old are you?
I'm 11 and a half.
It's okay. Come on upstairs. We have to have a little talk.
My mommy and Daddy did that?
Actually, a very beautiful thing. And look, there wouldn't have been a Veda.
I think it should be outlawed.
Oh, believe me, someday you'll feel differently.
Well, that's probably Thomas J. I don't want to see him. It's not fair. Nothing happens to boys. Hi, Veda. Can you come out? I don't know. Please, it's real hot. Maybe we can go swimming. No. Get out of here. And don't come back for 5 to 7 days.